We don't hit home runs on this podcast. We work station to station. We are doing a little car cast. Dustin, where are we reaching you today?
Right now I'm on Jane Street in Vaughan.
Stuck in traffic.
Slowly moving towards the highway.
Of course. All right. Well, we haven't podcasted in a while for various reasons, but wanted to do a little vibes Dustin check, see what's happening, and banter a little bit about the Blue Jays. So I'm just gonna do a quick rundown. Jays are 22 and 24, 5 games back of the Yankees. Jays have played some at times good baseball. Seems like the last month, but I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern. It seems like it's kind of the same as when we last talked in April.
Yeah, it's probably how I'm feeling too. Kind of treading water here. As you mentioned, 5 games back of first place, but in second place in the AL East. So there's maybe just some, good fortune that, the AL East has not been very good. Baltimore has really fallen flat on their face.
They're horrific.
Yeah, season last year, and then Boston's not doing great either. Tampa is below 500, so it's not ideal. Obviously, I'd rather be above 500 and competing with the Yankees a little closer. But I mean, they're still within striking distance. I mean, a good month and a half or so of positive wins. You could catch up unless they pull away.
Yeah, and not that their fortunes really changed. As I said, I think we're kind of in the same kind of boat. But I feel like a couple things over the last maybe few weeks, Dalton Varsho coming back seemed to kind of a little bit ignite things, at least from a power perspective. He obviously can hit some home runs. And I thought Alejandro Kirk as well has seemed to have kind of got his swing, at least for now. And I think, in both cases, it seemed like they Dalton Varsho returned in time for his bobblehead night, and Kirk seems to be swinging well enough for his bobblehead night too. So I think he backed his bobblehead night. I think he played a key role in that game. But those are two things that I've kind of noticed of late.
Yeah, I definitely noticed those two things, and obviously George Springer been for the whole start of the season has been a real turnaround and has carried whatever little offense they've had so far on his back. I mean, Bo's been okay lately. He's hit a couple home runs and hit his stride. So yeah, I mean, a couple good positives there, as you point out, in Dalton Varsho. Hopefully he can keep it up. That's my concern. And, Kirk too. I think, I don't know if they've found some sort of new approach or if it's the new hitting coach or something, but they seem to be swinging a lot harder, just with more, intent to put one out of the park and not just make contact. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, and definitely power seems to be up. They are kind of off the bottom of the league in terms of their home run totals. Still not great. I think they're still bottom 5, but definitely in terms of home runs, that seems to have turned. And I think they've also been getting contributions kind of up and down the lineup, like Ernie Clement, Addison Barger. But it seems like, when they do get these contributions, aside of one series, it's kind of that sole contribution, and like they're not really getting a lot of help from anybody else. And that one series I'm of course referring to is the sweep in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, that's been, in my estimation, the biggest problem, kind of up and down, not just the lineup, but like the whole team, has been the lack of, offense in big numbers, in big bunches, crooked numbers in multiple innings in a game, putting a game away has really been a problem. I mean, at least up till before that game, again, the series rather, against Seattle, and even maybe a couple games before in Los Angeles, they started hitting a lot of runs. But before that, it was just every game, even the games they won, were nail biters, 1, 2, 3 runs at a minimum. I think before that LA Angels series, I looked at just how many wins were above and below 300 or 3 runs, and it was like there was like 3 all season out of 15 wins. So it was just super tight, super stressful innings, and that has a big impact on the bullpen, right? When you're having to use your best guys late and close, and they're pitching stressful innings, and they're pitching often, that's going to put them, in tough spots as it goes along, and their workload increases. They can't keep that up, and we've seen some, bad outings from Jeff Hoffman and Garcia and some others. So, just it's a big problem when you don't have those put away games like we saw against Seattle and a couple others recently, which is a good turnaround, and I'm hoping that they can keep that up and at least for a few games in a row, give their back end of the bullpen a rest.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely apparent. And I guess you're hoping the offense comes around. I do wonder, do you try to pitch the starters a bit longer as a kind of like to help that, to bridge a bit more? Because it seems like this team, like every other team, is 100 pitches. Oh, he's gone, right? And even if I don't know, there's been a few times where a pitcher's pitching well. Yeah, he's reaching the end, but I don't think he, it didn't seem like the roof was caving in and he needed to be hooked, but he was kind of facing that 100 pitch mark, and it just seems like it seems a bit arbitrary for me. The guys that we do have in our starting rotation are a bit older, so maybe that's something that isn't kind of going to help out as much because they do have to manage that a bit more. But I do think, we're at 5 games back of the Yankees right now, and there's a couple comments around the office that this past week that kind of resonated with me a little bit. One of them was the Jays got to stay within 3 games of the Yankees, right? If they can just stay within 3 games of the Yankees, you can maybe make a trade, go on a run, and seems like that's kind of widening a little bit right now. And I guess we'll see over the next couple months leading into the All-Star break, see where that heads, right? And the other item that I kind of thought was, someone compared the Blue Jays to a boxer with a good jab but no knockout punch. And I thought, I sat there and I thought about it, and it's funny because I think after my coworker made this comment, by the way, it was not Rob, but I think I saw some knockout punches, but they do seem to be a team that can, they can stick a jab in your face, but when they get runners on, when they get multiple runners in scoring position, they're not always able to really cash them in and connect with that kind of haymaker. And I'm hoping, the season is long, right? And I'm hoping guys like Vladdy, Bo's been hitting a lot of doubles, right? So I think that's a good sign. Vladdy, I think, has been he it's like a slow simmer. And the one thing I have to remind myself about Vladdy, though, is last year he wasn't great in April, and it really only was, I looked at the numbers pretty closely. It was kind of June that's when he started to really progress, and of course, we know the rest of the season, and it July, August, all of that were great, but May and June is kind of when he started to kind of really put it together. And I don't know if Vladdy is particularly bad, but we of course have expectations of Vladdy, and especially we definitely have expectations of Vladdy now, given the contract he just signed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that. I think that's a great analogy. The knockout punch. It's in order to do that, what they need is all these guys, everybody in the lineup, or at least the top 3 or 4, let's say Bo, Vladdy, Varsho, and Santander, to be hitting together, be clicking together, and put together a string of runs, home runs, grand slams, that kind of thing, to put teams away. And that seems to be the problem. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, is that it just hasn't clicked all together. When Vladdy's hot, Bo's injured, or vice versa, or just cold and hot, at the wrong time. And now, Santander has had a horrendous start. I think he's like batting 180 or something horrible. And, I'm sure he'll turn around. It's just, we need him and Vladdy and Bo and, to a certain extent, Varsho, and maybe even like Barger, if he can kind of figure it out and put together a nice string of at-bats, that's really going to be what they need to get that knockout punch.
Well, Barger, I actually thought, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was about to mention him. If we could get some decent offensive production out of Barger, I think there's your third baseman, right? Unless, you of course make a trade, something like that. But I think it seems like he has a bit more pop than Ernie Clement. He certainly has a better arm than Ernie Clement, and I'm not trying to slag off Ernie, because Ernie seems like a solid player. But Addison Barger, if we could get something out of him, and it's definitely too early. This Addison Barger seems like, if he's going to be a major league player, like, it's gonna take a while. It seems like it's definitely not something that I think is going to happen overnight. But he has shown some signs, a bit of power. He's got a few extra base hits, but I think he was hitting like in the last 14 days. I think he's hitting about just over 300. So good sign there. But I guess we have to keep that going. But Barger, we talked about, I think on our last podcast, that, who was going to be sent down. Of course, we got that wrong, because Alan Roden ended up being sent down. But Addison Barger kind of fits in, with the, seemingly elite defensive skills.
Yeah, and if he can figure it out, and it solves a number of problems. I mean, he's going to get some run here, I think, with Andres Jimenez injured, which forces Ernie over to second base, which gives him a spot at third, being there every day. I think, maybe the trick is, him against lefties. They seem to be cautious against that, and not wanting to.
And rightfully so. I looked at his numbers today, and his splits, I think he has a sub 400 OPS against lefties, and he's in the 700s for righties for OPS. So it's quite the split between lefties and righties.
Yeah, and sure, when you're a bench guy, or you have a platoon or something, that's great to be able to guard him against that. But if he is going to be the solution at third base, then he's got to be in there every day. And the only way to learn how to hit lefties is to hit lefties. So
yeah,
I mean, they got to give him some opportunity, in my opinion, to fail a little bit and learn, and accept that he might not be the best against lefties.
Yeah, and I think probably normal, right? The going against a lefty when you're lefty is never really easy. All right, Dustin. So I did want to. I guess this is going to come out. This is going to come out the morning after the Padres series has started, and I did want to kind of talk about. You touched on a while back about the strength of schedule, and so last weekend, Jays play the Mariners. They sweep them. Jays play the Rays at home. Then they play the Tigers. And by the way, the Tigers are the best team in baseball. Like I knew the Tigers were good. I knew the Tigers are good pitching, but they're like the best team in baseball. And so taking one off them, probably not the worst. But going into this kind of homestand, I was thinking like, oh, this is a big homestand, and we'll see how they do. And the Padres, not the best team in baseball, but they're snapping at the Dodgers' heels out west, right? So give me your thoughts on Padres, this homestand, just kind of everything, how the Jays are faring against these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres, I think, are a good team on paper, and there's a lot of the pundits that would have them, fairly competitive with the Dodgers, as you say, and so they're a good team. And they're not to be taken for granted, despite their record. I mean, they have been playing fairly poorly lately, as far as I understand. So we'll see, if they can, if the Blue Jays are the solution for them to that, which seems to be the case sometimes when we get these teams that, we should beat and then don't. And, like Seattle, we thought was going to be a tough series and we swept them. So, it's hard to say exactly, but I'm optimistic for the Padres series. I think that it's winnable for sure.
All right. Well, I like that optimism. Dustin, I'm going to let you get back to focusing on the road. And we'll talk about the Jays again soon, but I wanted to just do a quick check-in, quick vibes check here in May.
Yeah, vibes are mid.
Vibes are mid. Oh boy. All right. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.